What's up, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It is time for Nick at Night, my non-spoiler comic book review show. I just got done reading my books, so let's break them down. Coming up next. And we're going to start with Marvel's Axe Judgment Day issue number 6. This is the conclusion of that run. Now, my overall thoughts on the run in general and the whole event in general is it was okay. It was an okay run. The art was always top tier. I like the art style in here. That's always been really fun. The overall story, I just don't think enough people care about the Eternals to really base a whole event on it. You know what I'm saying? So like, we have Jurigan here. He's identified mutants as excess deviants. And excess deviants meaning they're different than the norm, right? They're different from the Homo sapien species. Now mutants are just going everywhere. They're not just bound to Earth. They've fixed death with immortality almost. They have like this resurrection protocol that we've explored for years now. And so he's got this plan now to kind of wipe everything out. We get a Celestial resurrected from our humans, and that kind of goes in a different direction. This Celestial is out there now judging everybody on Earth. And so we get all these little intimate moments with different people around the world. You know, their daily life, their thought process, what's going on in their head when they're hearing this news of this ultimate judgment. Now, it is kind of fun to see the different heroes being judged individually by their characters. We get some people that we just know what the judgment's going to be because they're so twisted, but we get some of the heroes and things like that that we thought, oh yeah, they're good to the core, right? Like Captain America, how is he possibly going to be judged negatively, right? But he definitely gets the thumbs down in here. And we get a lot of that weird twists that we see in this book from this judgment, right? So at least that was interesting. It kind of kept you on your toes from that perspective, you know. But again, I just don't think the point of this book, the way that it was started, the way that it was initiated, and by who, I just don't think enough people cared about it, and it just did all it could possibly do to keep us interested in it. So at the end of the day, our heroes do find a way. There's a lot of things that are going to be ongoing now. There's a lot of problems that are going to be ongoing, I would imagine, about that, especially around trust issues. There's new power structures now on the Eternal side. So that's going to be interesting to explore going forward, I think. But, you know, again, it was kind of an average event overall, I thought. But let me know what you guys thought about Axe Judgment Day, especially if you read a lot of the tie-ins, because I certainly did not. There was just too many of them. Like I said, I read Judgment Day and I'm reading Immortal X-Men because that was kind of a fun, intimate look at the Quiet Council and how each one of them is handling the situation right now. So let me know what you thought about Axe Judgment Day down below. I thought it was average, but I want to know what you guys are thinking. So that was actually it for Marvel. We're going to jump into DC next. We have Detective Comics 1065 from Ram V, Albuquerque, and Stewart. This is a pretty cool book. Now, if you're into like the Ra's al Ghul, Talia al Ghul, Lazarus Pit kinds of stuff, you're going to love this book because it's basically rooted in the whole history of those clans and that whole society and that culture coming back over to Gotham to kind of claim what they think is rightfully theirs. And Batman's going through a tough way right now. He's got infected by something. He's just feeling down, right? But he can't figure out like what exactly is going on. And we get a little Talia action in here as well. So we have like this meeting of the masses right here. We have this ancient culture, this Lazarus Pit, you know, Ra's al Ghul, ancient culture here invading Gotham, and we have Batman intercepting. So there's a lot of cool action. It's rooted in a lot of like supernatural kinds of things. So if you're into that style of Batman, I think you're going to really enjoy this. It has been really fun. On the back side of this, there is a really cool Two-Face backstory in here written by Cy Spurrier, and I think Hayden Sherman's on here too. Hayden Sherman's doing some amazing work with Dark Spaces Wildfire and Above Snakes. Now he's doing this backstory in here focusing on Two-Face with Cy Spurrier. It was really fun. It's like a battle of the minds, the monster versus the human side, the Harvey Dent side. And so it was kind of cool to see all that play out. So if you're into the more supernatural Batman, if you like the Lazarus stuff, the Ra's al Ghul, the Talia al Ghul kind of stuff, and how it interplays with Batman, I think you're going to really enjoy this one, so check it out. All right, we're going to dip into another DC book. We have Human Target issue number 8 from Tom King and Greg Smallwood. I actually got that Jorge Remendez cover because I kind of preferred it over the Smallwood cover, although all the Smallwood covers have been really, really good so far, but I just like that Jorge Remendez art style on here too. Of course, we have Ice, and we have the Human Target himself on here with a cool perspective shot, which is why I got that one. He's kind of in the mirror, but it's first person. Here's his glass looking in the mirror with Ice there. Really, really cool stuff. So if you're not into Tom King, this book feels like him, but it takes away some of the things that people criticize him for, I think. Now, there's a lot of his tropes in here about time and pacing and monologue and things like that, but it's actually executed very, very well. So Human Target's a very cool book, so I would really recommend that one. So we're essentially, I believe we're on day 8, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Or maybe a little bit longer. But what's really cool about this book is the perspectives, the storyboarding, and the shots and things like that are just really, really unique. And it's really fun to see that. You can almost see this playing out as a movie or as a show or something like that. That's the kind of perspective it's taking. So it is really fun. These books usually open up really dramatically, and that's exactly what's going on in here. It's just a really fun first 3 or 4 pages. And then we're playing through this whole story of Christopher Chance being kidnapped, actually, by Rocket Red. And so Rocket Red's kind of doing his own investigations right now. Guy Gardner's missing. He doesn't know what's going on. He knows that Guy Gardner had it in for Human Target, and all of a sudden he's not responding to his calls, so he thinks he's definitely involved. So there's page after page after page of these different attempts to like kind of not torture but interrogate in a way Christopher Chance here, our Human Target. And it's just really fun how it all plays out. Again, the art style is beautiful, and it was just great storytelling, which I think is great from Tom King here. It's just, he's doing a really good job with this, and of course the art is amazing as well. Now, of course, in Tom King fashion, we do have this setup that's been building. You don't quite pick up on it necessarily when you're reading it. Christopher Chance keeps asking this very specific question every time he regains consciousness, essentially, between interrogation sessions. And he's asking that question not just to be a dick or to be, sarcastic or anything like that. There's a very specific reason, and you figure it out towards the end of the book, and it plays out in a very, very cool way. So it's very much in his voice, Tom King's voice. It's very much in his fashion, but I would say it doesn't do a lot of the things that he gets criticized for a lot. I think this one and Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, is probably one of the best Tom King books I've read in a long time. It's just a really fun read, especially if you're into Human Target, if you're into the more classic DC anti-heroes, if you're into that Justice League of America kind of stuff, I would recommend picking this one up. It might shatter some of the conceptions that you have of those characters, but if you have the capacity to like just accept the story for what it is and just have fun with it, I think you're going to have a really good time with Human Target. So Human Target continues to be a strong book. This one's great. Check it out. Keeping the DC train going here, we have DC versus Vampires issue number 10 from James Tynion. We have Rosenberg and Schmidt on here as well. And again, I keep saying this, I really enjoy these DC apocalypse stories, not the Crisis kind of stuff. Those can be interesting, but those take a lot of brain power and historical knowledge to really kind of figure out. These DC versus Vampires, we also had Deceased from Tom Taylor a few years ago. That was a really fun one. When they do books like that, it's easier for people like me to jump into those who don't know the complete history of the DC universe and just have a really fun time with them, because it also shines a light on a lot of the B, C, D characters in there. They typically take out the A and S tier characters pretty quickly, and it's all those lower characters that have to kind of team up and do whatever they can do to kind of win back the day, right? And so we have a few different characters in here. We know who our King Vampire is in here. It's actually a Robin. I'll let you figure out which one if you're reading the book. And so we have all these different people attacking that problem in different ways. We have a lot of the Gotham-based heroes invading Gotham right now, which is a complete fortress from vampires, and they're teaming up with a very interesting person to kind of get into Gotham to take this Robin out. And so then we have this other group over here with Steel and Supergirl going in, and they're kind of attacking this other source of power right now too. So it's a very interesting separation of characters right now. They're each on their own journeys, and they touch on those equally throughout the book, which is always really fun. We get Punchline in here, introduced in here. We get some Harley action, mostly on the Gotham side. We get a little bit more feedback on the Gotham side over here. They have a pretty cool plan on how they're going to take back Gotham. There's a lot of Bat Family, like B, C, D level Bat Family, that have been surviving in Gotham this whole time, and they've all kind of come up with this idea in case something like this were to happen, and they're executing on that plan right now. So this is definitely winding down. We're on issue number 10. I think it's a 12-issue run. It is pretty cool, though. Check this one out. This one's really fun. Again, Deceased was really fun. I'm not sure about the spin-offs from Deceased, but the main Deceased run was really kind of cool. And there's a lot of like shocking panels in that book. And this is no exception either. So check this one out if you haven't. It's really fun. All right, and to wrap up our DC books, we have DC Horror Presents Sergeant Rock and the Army of the Dead. We have issue number 2, right? 2 of 6 on here from Bruce Campbell. Art style is really cool in here. We basically have Hitler using dead bodies, resurrecting them, creating like a zombie army, and our Sergeant Rock and his platoon have to actually figure out what to do against that kind of a power, that kind of a supernatural power, right? So we're with our little squad right here. We're investigating this manufacturing plant in a way, right? Where they kind of make all these zombies. They're trying to cut off the supply line, trying to learn a little bit more about this whole thing. And of course, they run into some more awesome zombie action. And it's just a really, really fun time to see how these guys are taking on this threat right here. I'll give you a little hint of the art style in here. It is just really fun. And it's like high stakes. It's a little bit gory. It's a little bit horrific, but it's also fun at the same time. It's just a really interesting book. So it's just one of those feel-good books, although the subject matter is a little bit crazy. There's some references of the Fuhrer, of Hitler, just being high all the time on morphine and like steroids and stuff like that, which I think is awesome. You need to research that if you haven't yet. It explains a lot. But yeah, it's a fun DC horror book. And so, yeah, I'm loving that one. Check this series out if you haven't already. It's just 6 issues. We're 2 issues in. Check it out. All right, we're going to go over into some Image books next. We're going to start with Creepshow, Tales of Suspense and Horror issue number 2. Not as strong as issue number 1. There's only 2 stories in here, and none of them did it for me. I think they should have taken the first issue and moved it to this week because the first issue had some stories about Halloween and trick-or-treating, and that was just more timely, I think. This one, not so much. This one wasn't that strong. There's 2 stories, like I said. One is basically focused on this little girl. She's got troubled parents. They're always arguing, they're fighting, things like that. And so she's internalizing all that drama. There's this ancient tree in their backyard, and there's some kind of weird supernatural thing going on there with her anger rising and this tree kind of infecting the house and taking out the parents and things like that. Again, I think the beginning of the story was pretty fun, but like it ended so quickly, there was really nothing to build up. We didn't have enough build up, and we didn't have a great ending to the story. So, there was that. Then the second story in here is about this caregiver who's got these evil intentions. He's actually taking care of this older gentleman who created some, famous comic book content or something like that, developed these characters and whatnot. And he has this idea to basically rob him, and it plays through that whole situation, and it gets a little bit trippy towards the end of that. It's like almost like some of the characters come alive to defend this comic book creator. So, again, it wasn't a great story. It was probably better than the first one. So Creepshow number 2, kind of a dud compared to the first one, especially. Again, 2 stories. First one wasn't great. Second one was okay. But check out number 1, I would say for sure. Maybe skip number 2, and we'll see what number 3 brings. Continuing on with Image Comics, we have Firepower issue number 24 from Robert Kirkman and Chris Samney. A lot of people said that this was the last issue. It certainly doesn't end in a satisfying way. It ends on a big cliffhanger and a big bomb dropped here by one of the masters to Owen. But if you're into Firepower, if you like that art style, if you like the pacing of that, it's exactly what we got going on here. It's extremely fast paced, lots of action, a little bit of dialogue sprinkled in here and here, but it's basically like an episode of Dragon Ball Z in this universe, and it is really cool. I would say, man, Chris Samney, his art has evolved through this whole process. Some of the paneling in here, especially when you're dealing with like the serpents, like fireballs or whatever they are, versus our firepower, like their fireballs. Whenever they're kind of going at it at that level, the artwork's incredible. Some of the shading and everything, and the coloring, just the perspectives used. It's just so cool. I think he's evolved so much with this character and this style. It is just kind of, it's really cool. It's really cool to see that. So. Again, it doesn't end in like a real satisfying kind of a way. So I'm wondering if this is the end. And I'm reading the notes in the back here, the different questions from the readers, and it says, but hey, who's excited for a big, giant 25th issue celebration when we return? I can't wait to share what's coming up next with you all. But until then, let's share some news. So there is going to be a 25th issue, and it's going to be some kind of big issue, right? So I'm wondering if that's going to be the end of it. I've certainly had a lot of good times with this run, so I'll be sad to see it go. I think it trailed off somewhere in the mid-teens, high teens, and then it picked it back up on its steam in the early 20s, and it's definitely kicking some ass still into issue number 24. So Firepower, it's a great read. I highly recommend it. If you're going to get into it, there was a big hardcover issue 0, essentially. Gave you a little bit of backstory that is relevant, so I would pick that up before you go into the trades for this, but it's definitely a book you should check out. It's been a lot of fun. This issue was action-packed. Check it out. Then we have Rogues Gallery issue number 4 from Hannah Rose May, and we have Justin Mason on here as well. This was a really cool book. Basically, it's the attempted murder, attempted assassination of this comic book actress. She's been in some of the movies, the film adaptations of this really well-received comic book story. So of course there's going to be some critics out there. There's going to be people my age that are going to be screaming at the different execution of the live screen adaptation of their favorite work. And they get together and they say, you know what, we're actually going to go in there and we're going to teach her a lesson, kind of a thing, right? We're gonna steal the book, we're gonna beat her up, whatever we're gonna do. But some of the people have different intentions in here, and they actually start playing out the plot of the first book, which is this murder of this character. And so our female character in here, we get a really cool issue number 2, where basically we dive into her backstory. She's actually really into this whole thing, and she's kind of putting her heart and soul into this character, but it's not really translating on screen very well, so people are mad at her, right? And so we basically have these two groups colliding right now. So this is a home invasion gone wrong, and this is a chance for our Red Rogue character to take her stance and defend her home and defend her friends. So it was really, really executed well. And I'm liking the art style too. The art style was pretty fun. It's got this kind of gritty look to it. It's an ultra-violent book. It is a violent book because it just needs to be. That's what the story requires from it. But it was pretty fun. I did like it a lot. So I would check this one out. This is kind of a sleeper hit for me. It's only a few issues. It's 4 issues, but I had a lot of fun with it. The story was really nice. It's relatable in a weird way. I would check that out. The art's really cool. And yeah, I'd highly recommend this one. So check it out if you haven't yet. Next Image book we have this week is Vanish, issue number 2 from Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman. And again, I was witness to this cover being created on Ryan's Substack. Ryan and Donnie's Substack. He was drawing this live. And so it's so cool to kind of see it in real life now, just holding it here. It's pretty cool to see that creative process. So that was really awesome. But basically, we have our main character giving us a little bit more exposition about his upbringing a little bit. We have these super powered, essentially magic users, and we're learning some of the rules, some of the things you intervene with, and sometimes you don't intervene, right? So you don't intervene with like personal people's problems. You don't intervene on saving people necessarily, but there's certainly times where your magic is used, and they explore a pretty tragic event in American history in the beginning of this book, and we kind of go over what it could have been like to intervene, but then we didn't, right? And so we're establishing the rules of the society here a little bit more. In the last issue, we had our main character realize that a lot of these superheroes that are around the world right now are actually ancient villains in disguise, and so he's trying to do whatever he can do to kind of build up his ranks right now to combat these folks because they're super powered and we need all the help we can get. So he naturally goes and visits his magician friend right now, Dave Navarro, and you can't tell me that's not Dave Navarro when you look at some of these pictures. I mean, yeah, Ryan basically drew Dave Navarro into this comic right here. And so he gets his best friend, Dave Navarro, who's a magician, who's using his talents to kind of amaze the crowd. He's doing a lot of cool things. There's a lot of funny dialogue about some of the acts and things like that he's doing. And a lot of people don't necessarily believe him, or they're a little hesitant to join them because their life is just a certain way now. A lot of time has passed since this threat has been around. And then we get a cool little shot from the villain side over here. They're all in their superhero garb and everything, and they don't really believe either that the other side, the good guys, are still around. And they're a little bit hesitant on there. They don't really understand what's going on. But one of the guys that we saw in the first issue reveals some truth to this. And so everyone's kind of scared right now and trying to figure out the next step. So we have essentially these bad magic users and these good users, and they both don't believe that the other one exists after all this time. And so they're all trying to figure out what they're going to do about that. So Vanish issue number 2, it's a cool world building issue for sure. Introduces a few new characters, brings us into the bad guy lair, like the Legion of Doom, kind of like lair, to see what's going on there. Interesting run so far, so check this one out. All right, last Image book. I picked this one up on a whim because the cover looked at least interesting, and when I flipped through it, there's some pretty shocking stuff in here, so I wanted to check it out. We have American Jesus from Mark Millar, and we have Peter Gross and Tom Coker on here as well. Again, I just picked it up because the cover was interesting at least. It has like a Lucifer falling from grace, kind of a thing going on. So I was like, oh, that's going to be something I might want to check out. So I looked into it. If you're into angelic and demonic conspiracy theories, if you're into the whole, what if the United States was run by the Antichrist and there's some kind of an uprising, there's some kind of a second coming of Christ, and also like a second coming of the devil or a new iteration of the devil, and what that would look like if it was all baked into human politics and society and things like that, this is kind of the book for you. It kind of walks us through that process. We get introduced to our Lucifer kind of character and what his plans are for like ascension or next step in that process. We also get introduced to our more angelic character and what she's been up to and what's been going on for over the different centuries and millennia as far as that character goes. So yeah, it was a cool exploration. There's some satanic like worship kind of stuff in here as well, and they kind of walk through what they're going to do in that process. So that was kind of fun. We get, again, like our more angel-ish kind of character, but maybe she's got a little dark side to her as well. We're going to explore that as we go. So it was actually a fun little sleeper hit, I would say. American Jesus, pretty fun. Again, if you're into that like angelic and satanic conspiracy theory kind of thing, they still walk among us. They're in positions of power and they're trying to grow their ranks. If you're into that kind of storytelling, I would check this one out. It was pretty fun. We're going to jump over to the Vault comic real quick. We have Barbaric issue number 3 from Morrissey, and we also have Golden. Is it Nathan Golden? And we have Rodson Duke on the coloring. Now, this issue has everything that you love about Barbaric. It has the talking axe. It has the awesome interaction between the barbarian and the talking axe. We get a little bit of Soren in here as well, and she does some of her magic stuff. So if you're into those high energy, lots of battles, lots of funny interactions between the axe and barbarian himself, you're going to love this book. So this is just the natural progression of this. So in past issues, we've learned about this history between our barbarian and this giant ogre who's kind of taken over everything and is responsible for all sorts of carnage. This is kind of like the initial battle between those two people, and we get a lot of interesting magic and a lot of interesting setup from both sides. And what I think is so funny is like both sides are extremely confident that they're going to take the other one down. Now there is a little bit of a conclusion in here. There is an end to this battle, but of course it definitely leaves both sides depowered in a way, and we have a little bit of transition of power on the hero side. The axe finds a new owner, and it's pretty awesome, and I can't wait to see what's going on there. And of course, the ending has an amazing little cliffhanger on here. It just gets you really kind of pumped up when you see what's happening at the end of the book. I'll give you a little tease of the art style in here. We have this Pan's Labyrinth character showing up over here. This basically this guardian of this temple they're trying to infiltrate. And of course we get Soren and our barbarian. I believe his name is Owen, if I'm not mistaken. We have a couple different Owens in these different books, so it always throws me off. But yeah, Barbaric, if you like what you've read so far in the different Barbaric volumes and in issue number 1 and 2, it continues everything you love about that character into issue number 3 and just moves the story forward. So check this one out if you haven't. Barbaric's just really fun. Check it out. We got another sleeper hit this week, this time from Source Point Press. We have this one-shot, Dr. Rigby, written and illustrated by John Kissy. And this is a really fun book. Our main character here, Dr. Rigby, I consider him like a crossover between like a John Constantine and a 007 in a way. He's like super clean cut, been there, done that, very confident kind of an attitude, but he uses supernatural weapons and knowledge and artifacts and things like that to take out whatever he's dealing with. So I think it's a pretty cool combination of characters to use. He's also got this element of like a detective inside of him too. So he's almost like a Batman, Bruce Wayne kind of a character. So it's a really cool combination of a lot of interesting characters that we all know and love. Basically, he gets called upon by an old friend who's basically Walt Disney in a way, right? But he's kind of fallen ill at the moment. What's happening right now is there's a missing girl. There's a missing girl after she was on a ride with her parents. It's kind of a spooky ride. She went missing. Nobody can find her. FBI, everyone's coming in. Nobody can find her. So everyone's thinking there's a supernatural element going on here, especially after some evidence that they've collected. Some apparition showed up that shouldn't have been there. It was more of a concept and it never made it to production. And so our guy here, Dr. Rigby, is actually exploring what's going on. So he kind of takes the ride himself and gets kind of sucked into this world where this little girl's being held captive by this ghostly apparition. And so he gets to learn a little bit more about the girl's involvement with this. He learns a little bit more about how to escape. He uses a lot of his cool weapons and gadgetry and things like that to get out of harm's way. And he ends up saving the day at the end. But what's really cool is this book leaves it a little bit open-ended. So we have the potential to investigate this a little bit further in the future. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool and a pretty awesome last page on here. A nice little shocking last page. And there's also a moment in the back where we get to go over Dr. Rigby's suit and his weapons, and we get some explanations about where they are and what they are and everything. So it was a really cool introduction to this character, I thought. He's got a lot of interesting qualities to him. He's very capable, very confident, has a lot of cool toys. Again, the art style was really fun. Let me show you a little bit of what that art style is. It really, really pops out. It really uses that white tone to really make things exaggerated. And I really like that a lot. It's pretty fun. It's a lot different than things you've read in the past and seen in the past. So it was just a really fun time reading this book. Dr. Rigby, if you see it at your shop, give it a chance and check it out. Let me know what you guys thought about it if you read it down below. Next, we're going to go over into Boom Studios for issue number 2 of Stuff of Nightmares from R.L. Stine and Frank Vella on the cover. Really loving those right there. We have A.L. Kaplan as well on here. And so this is a continuation of the first book of the series of Stuff of Nightmares. We basically had this reanimators kind of a situation going on. We have the evil scientists using body parts to reanimate the dead in a way. They get found out and they lose their lab, but they're kind of on the run right now trying to rebuild their lab and continue their work. They're going back in time a little bit now to a place where they used to live, where this old house was, and they're kind of setting up shop again. Of course, some of the drama between these 3 characters goes into full effect. We have our mad scientist, we have the muscle brother, and then we have this female who's kind of like the love interest for both of them in a way. And so we get that bouncing back and forth a little bit as well. So it creates a little bit of tension in-house, and it is pretty fun. So again, we kind of rebuild our ranks a little bit here. We get some new body parts. We're heading back in the direction we were in issue number 1. It's a fun read right here. There's a lot of shocking moments in here. It is pretty cool. The relationship is an interesting thing to explore. The horror aspect is also fun. The art style is pretty cool. I'll show you a little bit about what that art style looks like in case you're interested in that. It does have this really clean quality to it. It's got some really nice coloring and things like that. It's not like cartoony at all. It has this really cool look to it. So I do like that a lot. So Stuff of Nightmares issue number 2 continues to be pretty strong. I would say it's better than average for sure. Interesting story, interesting characters. I like where it's going so far. We'll see what issue number 3 brings though. Let me know what you thought down below. Sticking in Boom Studios for another moment, we have Damn Them All from Cy Spear and Adler on the art. This is a pretty interesting book. If you're into like the mobsters meets magic realm kind of a thing, I think you're going to enjoy this one. It's one set over in Europe, and so we basically have this exploration between this this mob family and some other characters involved. We follow this main female character here. Her name is Ellie Hawthorne, and she's kind of this badass, right? And she's got this mystical quality about her as well. She's got this one artifact that they kind of promise can do some cool stuff. We haven't really seen it just yet, but it's still a hammer if that's not true. So it is pretty funny to see that. So what's going on here? Basically, we have like transition of powers. We have older mobsters coming out. We have these like newer guys coming in. There's going to be some kind of power struggles, right? And there's also these demons that are kind of like in these totems, and there's something happening to these demons. They're being released, kind of against their will almost, and they're being weaponized. So these different mobs are kind of using them against each other. And so we have this team now kind of exploring what that means and how that can be the case and what can be done about it. And so it was really fun. I will say I've seen some criticisms about this being a little bit overly verbose, and I would agree. It is a little bit heavy on the dialogue, and it can be heavy on like the slang and the accents used in here. But also, if that's done right, it can add a whole new layer to it that you don't really experience from other comics, especially if it's written in your voice. You know what I mean? So if it's a delicate balance for me personally, let's just say that. So it was a fun book. Art is really cool as well. Let me show you a little hint of what's going on here. This is actually a scene where we have one of those demons / totems kind of being summoned to take out one of the other mobs. Right here. So we have this collection of folks over here kind of hanging out after a funeral, and we have this demonic presence that was being summoned to take some guys out over here. So it's that Charlie Adler art. So if you like that, if you like what you saw in Walking Dead, it's very reminiscent, of course, of that, just a slightly different style because, you know, everybody evolves over time. So yeah, it was a fun book. I'm interested to see where it goes. It feels a little heavy, to be honest with you. It is Cy Spurrier. I get that from him from time to time when I read some of his stuff. It's a very interesting book. It's drawn well. It's got a lot of cool stuff behind it. It feels like there's a lot of depth in this story and this plot in general. So yeah, check out Damn Them All if you haven't yet. It was a pretty fun read. All right, we're going to close out with some AWA books. We're going to start with Peter Milligan's Absolution issue number 4. I can't believe this is wrapping up pretty soon. There's some really cool AWA books out there, so check those out for sure. This one's been pretty fun so far. I would say it's starting to hit its plateau for me personally, but we're on issue number 4 of 5, so just in time, right? And so basically, again, the premise for this book is we have this Running Man meets Twitch TV kind of thing going on. We have our main female character here, and she was sentenced to have these like Suicide Squad kind of bombs implanted in her. Now her job is to go around and assassinate people, and they're basically broadcasting this live in front of like a Twitch TV kind of an audience, and they're actually giving her points on how clever and brutal she is with these assassinations, and if she gets enough points, she reaches absolution and becomes free. If it goes down far enough though, if she does some stuff the audience doesn't like, the bombs detonate and she dies. So it's this weird balance between like, okay, what does a sick audience want and what am I capable of doing? And so she's actually kind of taking the high road right now and helping someone with some kind of an abusive relationship. And this person though has been very, very clever and infiltrated the chat and is using the chat kind of against her in this way. And so there's a really big surprise at the end, and our main character is kind of in a bad spot right now. So I'm not entirely sure what she's going to do about that. Art style wise, it's Mike Deodato Jr., so you kind of know what you're going to get. You're going to get those cameos, those celebrity cameos from time to time in here. You're going to get that heavy shading. You're going to get that like sharp line work. And so there's really no surprise about the art style in here. But you know, it has been a fun little read right here. I'd say the whole concept in general is kind of plateauing. I'm glad it's only 5 issues. If it was like 8 or 12 or something like that, I might have dropped this already. But since it's only 5, I could stick around for that and see what the conclusion is going to be all about. Let me know if you're reading this one down below and what you thought about it. All right, we're going to close it out with AWA's New Think, issue number 5 from Greg Horowitz. And man, I'm telling you, this book has been incredible. I'm loving everything about this. It's actually like a deep dive into culture, into humanity, into your psyche. And every single issue of this has been pretty eye-opening. We can just kind of say it like that. If you like the vibes you get when reading Ice Cream Man, and you like how it explores the human condition, you're gonna like New Think, I think. So I would highly recommend New Think if you like that kind of a exploration. So check that one out. In this issue here, it's written pretty interesting. In the very beginning, you basically have this playground scene. You have like this Mother Goose kind of a character sitting in the middle of nowhere, kind of summoning the different children in the playground to come to her to kind of listen to story time. She's dressed in older clothes, and you know, it's set in the modern day, I suppose. And it was just kind of a weird way to open the thing, but it's kind of essentially story time for kids. So come on over and listen to this. And this lady, she goes over the big 5 personality traits. So if you're not familiar with those, we have openness, neuroticism, conscientiousness, agreeableness, and extroversion. So we basically go through the good parts and the bad parts about each one of those traits, and she's explaining that basically everybody has a different perspective. Everyone's high in one, low in another one, and it's that combination, it's that melding that really brings a lot of benefit to society in general, because if everyone was one way, it would be very bad and one-sided, you know what I mean? There wouldn't be a lot of room for the opposite trait, you know what I mean? And so it's a really cool book. It's showing all these examples about the different traits and what it's like to go on the high end and on the low end of each trait. So we explore that in here. We also kind of layer all that. All the kids are like, yeah, that makes sense, that we're all kind of different and we like different things, and our perspectives are different, and our motives and everything are a little bit different. As this book goes on, it kind of talks about how the parents have lost that perspective in a way, that everyone's kind of different. Everyone has their own objectives and their reasoning behind their actions and their thought processes. And it kind of layers the parents and the children on 2 separate planes. And so basically the message here is, you know, you kind of go back to that and remember that everyone has their own reasoning to do certain things. You know, things can escalate very, very quickly, especially on social media, especially when sharing opinions and everything else. And so I think when you kind of boil everyone down to their core, everybody wants the same core things, unless there's something, you know, pathological with you, right? Pathologically wrong. And so basically we all want the same kinds of things. We all want health and humanity and peace and prosperity and everything like that. But it's all these little minor differences that get in the way. And who's the biggest beneficiary of everyone kind of fighting, right? Who's going to benefit the most from all this squabbling down below? And so it does explore all that. So I think it's a nice little deep dive into the human condition, why we act the way we act, why we do the things we do, what are the risks and rewards of that behavior in general. And so this was a really interesting book. So I highly recommend New Think in general. Every issue has been brilliant, I thought. It's very, very cool read. I highly recommend this one. Check it out. So guys, that was a lot of books. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, go down below, hit that like button, and subscribe if you haven't yet. As a reminder, I do put out content on Instagram as well. So if you like what you see here, go follow me over there for more content. But as always, I appreciate you watching the video. Happy reading, and I'll see you guys in the comments.